Thank you for checking me out. This is Miss Young. Thank you. Today, it's not so much about real estate, but it's more about me moving or deciding to move to Georgia from New York. I have a lot of family that lives here, and I've been coming to Georgia for years, but I never liked Georgia. It just gave me such bad feelings when I came here, and it had a lot to do with it being in the South and the history. And when I came here, I just didn't feel it. There was no vibe for me. And I have lived in quite a few cities, a lot of major cities. I've lived in London. I've lived in suburbs of Los Angeles. I've lived in New York, and now I'm here in Georgia. So everyone always asks me, what made you move to Georgia? They also asked me what made me move to New York, California, and how was I in England. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. This is what made me decide to move to Georgia, the weather in New York. So in 2018, I want to say, my opinion, that was the coldest winter I ever endured whilst living in New York. And I lived there for, I think, 25 years, something like that, coming from Cali. So one winter, it was so cold, and I was outside with tons of layers on, and I decided that I couldn't take another. I told myself I will not spend another winter in New York. I will not buy another winter coat, because I do not plan on living anywhere that is so cold that I need winter coats. So honestly, it started with the weather, me wanting to move to Georgia. Um, so as everyone knows, or maybe you don't know, but New York has extreme weather temperatures. In the summer, it's extremely hot with no kind of wind or anything unless you're close to water. And so it's just an impacted heat that stays within the concrete buildings. They call New York the concrete jungle. And imagine heat and concrete. And then we have tall buildings, so the air doesn't get to flow through as nicely as like from November to February, sometimes March. It's freezing. It's freezing cold to the bone. So if you're going to New York, make sure you wrap up. It's a cold that you may have never felt before in your life. Anyway, so between the weather and the quality of life in New York versus Georgia, I decided that Georgia was a better quality of life for me. I still have a place there, and I do go back and forth. So I am right currently between New York and Georgia. New York, everyone pretty much lives on top of one another. Like you have neighbors on the side, you have neighbors on the top, you have neighbors below. Georgia, right now, I don't have that issue. I have a small house here that I was going to rent out, but that's what made me truly decide that I'm going to come to Georgia, because I had a place to come to. And actually, the place that I'm living in now is half the price of what my rent is in New York. And in New York, I have a 1-bedroom, and here I have a 3-bedroom. New York is a place where you go, you get your hustle on, and you get what you need, and you get out. It's a transitional place. It is not a place, unless you were born and raised there, that most people stay. They don't stay. They're transplants from somewhere else, and they come to New York for business, for school, whatever the case, and then they stay a couple of years, and then they move on. So for me personally, New York is not a place where I would have wanted to raise a family, or I would have been there with my family, because it's too hard, it's too rough, it's harsh. They say if you can make it in New York, you can pretty much make it anywhere, and I so believe that is the truth, because you will experience so many different things. It will test your patience. New York will test your patience. The weather, the people, the the condense the condensity of all the people that living in one saturated place. It's just a lot of people. So it would have been, it's hard to live in New York. But if you have a goal and a mission and you know what that is, and you know you put a time limit on how long you want to be there for, and you really know why you're there, know your why, as they say in YouTube, then it is a place that you can go network, make money, and get out. But if you're going to make money there and spend money there, you're going to turn around, make the money, and give it right back to wherever you're. It's so expensive in New York. And that was enough to be paying for in New York. And believe me, the quality of my apartment, to me, was not up to standard. It's up to New York standard, but it's not up to my standard. And my standard, it really isn't, something outrageous. It's reasonable. So when you go to New York, you pay a lot, and you don't pay for what you get. Like if I tell you that I'm paying $1,200 in rent, you would expect that I probably have some luxurious apartment. No, not in New York. It's a nice apartment, high ceilings, parlor floor, across the street from a beautiful park. Our neighborhood is great. Lots of restaurants in the neighborhood. Lots of culture. It's changing a little bit from gentrification, but it's a happening neighborhood. But it's very expensive. And if you want to live in a neighborhood that is reasonable, where you feel safe and you feel like you know your neighbors, you're gonna pay an arm and a leg for that. You are not necessarily paying for the apartment, but you're paying for the location. Like, you know how they say location, location, location? In New York, location, location, location is real. If you want to be in the location that everybody else wants to be in, you're gonna pay, and it's not really worth what you're paying for it. But in New York, it's worth it. Like, the standards in New York are different standards than anywhere else that I've ever lived, and I've lived in quite a few places. Anyway, so I did mention gentrification. Now, New York was going through a gentrification period, especially Brooklyn. Manhattan always, usually, but Brooklyn started to become gentrified. So a lot of the people that had lived there forever were now welcoming new neighbors, new people coming to their neighborhoods, which they were not happy about. People do not like change. They get stuck in change. But they moved. Gentrification was going on, and I noticed that when I came to Georgia, so there's gentrification in New York, but I've now, since living here, noticed that there's also a lot of gentrification going on here in Georgia. And I just, with COVID and everything that's going on, people are making moves. People are changing. People are migrating. People are making moves. They are reflecting on what would be best for them and their families. And, in New York, we're calling it the Great Migration, because we're seeing a lot of people migrating to different areas, mostly areas for space. So if it's a state or a city or a town where they can pay less for what they've been paying for in New York, they are moving. So Georgia, before I even moved, when I came here, I realized there are a lot of people from different states that live here. They have come to Georgia for work. They've come from the south, from other southern states, and they're also coming from the north. I'm considered a northerner in Georgia because I come from New York. So they say, oh, those people from up north. So it's so funny to hear that, because in New York, you don't hear that. Like, even if you are from the south, the north, once you live in New York, you just become a New Yorker. And New Yorker has so many transplants in there. There's no, I don't know, there are, of course, people that were born and raised there, but I don't know that there's that many that can honestly say, yes, I was born, raised, and lived here all my life. That's changing. um, so I want to talk about public transportation. Public transportation in New York is great because most people do not have a car in New York. It is too expensive and too high maintenance to have a car in New York unless you have a garage or somewhere to keep the car, because parking is very expensive and it's not worth it, honestly, to have a car in New York if you work and live in New York, in any of the boroughs or in the city. Everyone in New York rides public transportation. So even if you make six figures or you don't make any figures, you're riding public transportation or Uber or taxi. Public transportation in New York runs all night long. Um, not as not as frequent as during the day, but it does run all night. You will not be stranded in New York when it comes to public transportation. It's in abundance. The buses run, the trains run, Uber, yellow taxi, green taxi. Like, transportation is great. Georgia now, when I first moved here, I didn't have a car. You need a car in Georgia. You need a car in Georgia. So when I first moved here, I did not have a car. And I figured I'm used to the train, so I had no problem riding the train. That's what I thought. So what I noticed in Georgia is that most people have a car in Georgia. Like 98% of people, I think, have a car in Georgia. And most people drive to work. Not all, but most. So the people that are not driving, the people that do not have a car are the people that ride the subways. Unless they park in the train station and then they ride the train, which I used to do sometimes when I first got a car and wasn't used to driving. But I find there's so many weirdos on the train, and I used to be afraid to ride the train in Georgia because I've had so many incidents with weirdos on the train. It's like they spot you from a mile away. They know you're not from Georgia, because I've had that said to me so many times. Where are you from? You know, so I've had a man follow me from one train to another train. A young woman who sat like a couple seats from me, who, it's just a really horrible situation. Anyway, weirdos on the train. Weirdos on the train. So I really didn't like taking the train. I did not like it. And it takes so long because of the frequency of the train and the bus. So it used to take me 30 minutes. I mean, driving, it used to take me 2 hours. I had to leave my house 2 hours before getting to my job, which is a 30-minute drive in Georgia. So something that takes me 30 minutes driving used to take me 2 hours. 2 hours there, 2 hours back. So that's a total of 4 hours in travel to getting somewhere that's 30 minutes away. So yes, Georgia has traffic. New York also has traffic, but I did not drive in New York, so I cannot complain about the traffic in New York. But I do drive in Georgia, and the traffic here is bad during a certain time. So if it takes me 30 minutes to get where I need to get to on the regular day with no traffic, if there's traffic, it's usually an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. So it's a whole 30 to 45-minute delay if I'm stuck in traffic in Georgia. Another thing, public transportation is cheaper here than in New York. Here, I believe it's $2.50. I might be wrong. And New York is $2.75. Yeah. A major thing here that I noticed, that I used to hear people say this about New York, but like I said, I didn't drive in New York, so I couldn't really tell you. And I'm sure this is true of New York, but Georgia has so many potholes. The streets are terrible for driving. You could be driving and bam, boop, boop, you land in a hole. So I don't understand like why there's so many potholes. So like earlier I spoke about the weather in New York. Now the weather in Georgia has its own vibe. So what I did not know about the weather in Georgia is that it rains a lot here. It rains so much. Like when I first came here, it rained every single day for like 3 weeks. Like it rained today. And when I say rain, I don't mean like light showers. I mean downpours, thunder and lightning and brap and bop and brap, bam. When I say rain, I don't mean like light showers. I mean downpours, thunder and lightning and brap and bop and brap, bam. I never. So yeah, and that's why I guess everything in Georgia is so green, and New York is the opposite. It's all pretty much concrete. So yeah, so the potholes in the street tear your car up. Crime. To be honest with you, I'm more afraid here in Georgia than I was in New York. I've had a few incidents since I've come to Georgia. Well, one, they broke into my house and stole all the copper pipes out the walls. They've stolen my AC from out here, my big outside unit. I've gone to the store and bought something large trying to fit it into my car and had a couple come and tell me they'll bring it to my house for me if I give them a couple dollars, which it was such a setup, and I was just like, I'm not a fool, I'm from New York, and you don't let people follow you home, period. So, and the crimes that happen here, there's a lot of carjackings. If you have a really nice car, I don't know, they get you at the gas station. Like there's so many, when I first moved here, there were so many crimes that people rob you at the gas station, so you don't go to the gas station at night. And if you do go to the gas station, you make sure all your doors are locked, because when you're pumping gas, somebody could be sliding in your front seat from the passenger side, and they will take off with your car. I hear that endlessly. There's a lot of house break-ins. They say you'll be more likely to be robbed in your house than on the street, whereas in New York, you're more likely to be robbed on the street than in your house. And I also found that, I don't know if this is true, but it just seems really weird that when you talk to females that live on their own, that live in Georgia, there's not that many. Like everybody lives with somebody. Whereas it's cheaper here, but they don't seem to live on their own. I'm not sure. Maybe they do in doorman gated buildings, but it's just weird when I meet a female and they tell me they live on their own, and then another female or another person from Georgia will tell them, like, you're not scared, so it's like, I don't know. And then another thing which got me, like, I was shocked, like, people carry guns in Georgia. So you're allowed to carry a gun if you have a license, of course. And I've actually gone into a restaurant and seen a man with his holster and his gun, and it kind of scared me. It made me feel on edge, because I'm not used to seeing guns in New York. If it's a gun, if you see a gun, it's a policeman's gun or it's a criminal's gun. You don't see like everyday people carrying guns. And out here, a lot of women have guns for protection. The thing here is to go to the range and get a gun, get a license, get a gun. And that's like scary to me. But, at first I was like, I would never get a gun. And now it's just like, I don't know, like, do I need one? Like, it's like, do women, like, don't know. So yeah, the crime. When I tell people that I felt safer in New York, but first when it comes to the crime, they were shocked. that I felt safer in New York than I do in Georgia. But I do feel safe here. I haven't gone anywhere and felt like, ooh, except for one place that was, I'm not going to get into political details, but just remember we're still in the South. Sales. Oh, another thing that I noticed about rentals, like if you're looking for a rental or you're looking for a house to buy, the range is absolutely off the Richter scale. Like, it's such an extreme range that I cannot understand. At first, I could not understand how is it possible that one house here could be 60,000 and the same house over here is 200 or 400,000. And of course, I'm working real estate, so I do understand different neighborhoods, different locations, you know, different housing prices, all of that. I understand that. But it's usually within a range. And in Georgia, the range is just, for one state, the range is crazy. And another thing that I noticed about Georgia is that the different cities have different tax rates. So it's like if you're living in Manhattan, you'll pay, if you buy something in this store in Manhattan, you'll pay one tax rate, but if you go to Brooklyn, you might pay a different tax rate. That is exactly how it is in Georgia, which I don't understand that. I'm still figuring that out. But different cities in Georgia have different tax rates. Tax rates. When you're purchasing something, the tax rate in one city is different from another. Don't ask me why. So, yeah. And I've also noticed that the rentals are getting quite expensive here in Georgia. They're getting a little bit close to the prices in New York. But what you're getting for the price in New York is of less quality than in Georgia. One thing I really want to make this clear, because I think that a lot of people are going to want to move to Georgia or are thinking about it, but there are some things that you really do need to know before you go. One, you need to have a job. Prior to COVID, the job situation here was not so great. If you are not working and you're looking for a job, try to find a job before coming here, because the competition here is really stiff. A lot of people are looking for jobs. Also, um, they can't figure out where I'm from. Sometimes a lot of Southerners think I'm African. And I think it's because a lot of Africans that live here or come to Georgia, maybe went to school in England, so they have an English accent. So they affiliate an English accent with African. I don't know. The Southerners, not people that are from different parts of the world, but the people that were born and raised in Georgia tend to think that I'm African. And that's fine. I'm African. Parents are from South America, but we're all African. So I have no problem with that. But it's just funny, like how many times, like my neighbor, she swears I'm African. Even though I've told her so many times I'm not, she just refers to me as African in so many different ways, and I've just learned to accept it. So that's another thing. Like here, they're not so open or accommodating. Because even when I worked in a retail store. I won't mention which one, for a short period of time when I first moved here, and I found like some people to be really rude. Like they'll talk about me like I'm not even there. Like, and it was because I was a foreigner. I'm considered a foreigner to them. So they don't. Not everyone, but this is what I really did find this. Like they didn't know how to connect with me. left Georgia. So it's hard for them. They already have an impression in their mind of how the people are from up north. They already have in their mind how foreigners are. They're not that open to it. So it's like you really have to find a way to connect with them if that's what you want to do. But it is what it is, you know. Yeah, so I was talking about how everyone thinks that Georgia is cheap. In comparison to New York, it is. But it's not cheap like it used to be. It's changing. And it's because a lot of people are moving here and the prices are going up. The prices are going up. So if you are planning on moving to Georgia and you think you want to move here because it's cheaper, it is cheaper, but it's also getting more expensive. The cost of food is expensive, and it's gone up, and that's across the board. Like, I realize that. Housing is cheaper, but you need to be able to find a job. So everything is cheaper, but if you can't find a job to pay, then it's kind of like, you know, when I first moved here, I wanted to find like a little job just to get my feet wet in Georgia, because I'm actually a realtor and I'm getting my license here. So until I finished the procedure for the license here, I was working I was working a full-time retail job. And the amount of money that they were paying me was terrible. Like, honestly, it's really bad. Like, I couldn't even though my mortgage here is cheaper, what they were paying me, and I was like based in a commission job, I was struggling. Like, what I made in 1 month here, 40 hours, let's say 36 to 40 hours, wasn't even, yeah, like, like, what I made in a month, I made double in a week in New York. So it's hard because you come here with the intention of wanting to live your best life because you found somewhere cheaper to live, but the pay that they're paying you here is less. We all know that. But it's still not enough to live on. And I'm talking basics. Like, I don't know how people in Georgia make out, like, on these, like, retail jobs. Like, I worked with people that worked in retail. They have kids. I just don't understand how they're doing it. Because I'm one person, and what I was getting paid, I couldn't live off of that. Like, I still have something else going on in New York. So that is how I survived. But if I only had to survive on that one job, 36 to 40 hours a week, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And since COVID, I've been laid off, and that's really okay for now because I don't want to catch COVID, and for the pay that I was getting paid, it's not quite worth it. So it is what it is. So, yeah. So if you're coming here without a job, you're going to have a hard time finding one. You really will. Because the competition is just too stiff. And the way you send your resumes off these days, the best thing to do is to actually get like work with an agency, because if you have to send your resume off to all these different companies, it gets lost. Like, thousands of emails get lost, you know, in the system. And I've had interviews from sending my resume off, them coming back to me, set up a time, everything is electronically done or automatically done. Set up a time in a day, and I've set up a time in a day, and I'll go, and they'll be like, "You didn't know that we had an interview today. Come back another day." So it's like, it's a lot of work. So just be ready for that. Like, if you are planning on moving here, start looking for a job from now. I mean, now is different with what's going on with COVID. So I'm not really sure how the job situation is going to work here, but I'm just telling you, prior to COVID, the job situation was a situation. Diversity. Now, there's a lot of people. I did mention there's a lot of Southerners here, but there are also a lot of transplants here from other states, from other countries. But Georgia is so spread out that there's a little bit of everything, of everyone here. There's a tribe for everyone. It's just that you have to find where your tribe is and go hold it down with them, you know. So it is a diverse place, but it is very spread out. Like New York is very diverse, and you can be from anywhere in New York and nobody's gonna question you where are you from unless they're really interested in knowing where you're from. But in New York, everybody is from somewhere pretty much. And here, a little bit within the Atlanta area, but outside, it's pretty much the Southerners who were born and raised here. Um, oh, crime. So I did mention carjackings in Georgia. I did I did mention robberies. There's also a lot of scammers, and there's also sex trafficking here, which I did not know. But I've read a few, like every time I've read about Atlanta, I also read about sex trafficking. And I actually met this woman who, beautiful young lady who came to the store that I worked at, and we started talking, and she told me she had her own business, and it was helping young girls from the sex trade market. She's helping stopping it. And when I asked her, like, why? Like, what made you pick this? She said because she was caught up in the sex trade market. Like, she was sold as a young girl. So she got out of it, and I was totally blown away when she told me this, because you don't think of these things in this country. You don't think that is going on right now, but it's going on, and it's a big thing in Georgia. Like, I don't know why Georgia, but it really is a big thing. It's a big thing. I don't know if it's the strip club. I'm not sure. I'm not gonna talk about it because I really am not. I can't speak on it. I don't know, but I know it's going on. So we spoke about the weather. We spoke about transportation, hospitality. The Southerners, they're pretty much friendly. When you go to the stores here compared to New York, everyone says hi. How you doing? Like people speak to you here. If they don't speak to you, you normally know they're not from here. But if you're dealing with true Southerners, the people that are living here, and you go to the supermarket, everyone is so friendly. So, and I do like that. I do like that compared to New York. New York, nobody talks to each other because you're not sure who that person is, and I get it. But Georgia is a friendlier place, somewhere to you can actually. Every time I go out, I meet somebody. Like you end up talking to somebody, and it's like I've been invited to so many places, and with strangers. You talk to them, you tell them you're not from here, they tell you they're not from here, or they're from here, or you should try this, or you should go here, and you know. But one thing I do love about Atlanta is that it is the melting pot. It is like they call this. There's so many names for it. Wakanda. They call it Black Mecca, and I understand why it's called that, because when you're here, you feel. I've lived in London. I'm from London. I was born and raised in London. I moved to California. My family moved to California. Then I moved to New York, and then now I've moved to Georgia. And out of all the places that I've ever lived, Georgia is the one place that I've lived. New York was a little bit like this, but then you do feel it when you work in corporate companies. But Georgia's the one place that I feel like everybody. I know this is going to sound crazy, here seems to have money, unless they're fronting, which some people say they're fronting. But, like, there are some very well-to-do people here, black people. You know, they are doing things. They are making it happen, and I love it. I love that they have the opportunity to do it. Like when you see like a bunch of businesses or people talking about businesses, it's not one particular race of people that have that business. It's across the board. There's a lot of women here doing their thing. They're doing their thing. There's a lot of men here doing their thing. You know, everybody is doing something. They're getting their hustle on in their business. They're creating businesses. They're creating work for others, and it's not rare to go work for a black company. It's not rare at all in Georgia. There are black companies here that are doing really well. So I feel like you have a chance. You know, like you have opportunities here. Like you're not. I'm trying to think how I can put it without sounding so one-sided. When I see other people like me doing great things, being able to show that they're the head of their companies, or they're driving a nice car, they have a beautiful house. You know, it's motivation. It's inspiring to see other people who look just like me, who are doing their thing. And that's one thing I love about Georgia. So even like Tyler Perry opening his studios here, they call this the Hollywood of the South. Like Georgia is so many things. Hollywood of the South. When it comes to civil rights, because a lot of the civil rights activists, Martin Luther King, John Lewis, they were all either from here or they lived here, and it seemed like, and with the current mayor that we have, I love her. It's like Georgia is, and they said it. Georgia is the place to make an example. So all this going on with Black Lives Matter and everything, it's like Georgia is trying to be the leader in trying to get laws changed, trying for equal justice, equal rights, and it's not just for black lives, it's for all lives. You know, it's everybody's life is equal. We are all the same. We have the same 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 feet, whatever, 10 fingers, 10 toes. We're just different colors. And so what? Like, that doesn't make you better than the others. Like, if I wear, this is where, you know, when black people say Black Lives Matter, they're just, it's not them against another race. It's just telling you that we do matter, because we're not seen. And when that's a good word. We're not seen. In Georgia, I feel like we are being seen, because we are showing what we're capable of doing, and we're doing it. So we're not waiting to be seen in Georgia. We're seeing each other, but we still have a long way to go. Because not everybody is on the same page. And that's another reason why I wanted to live here, is because I feel like Georgia is progressive. It's, you know, it feels good to be here. It feels good to be here. So although they say New York people are not friendly, if you live around people that you've known forever and you've built a community in New York, you wouldn't say that they're not friendly, because you build your communities in New York, and it's not of one particular race or friend. It's whoever fits in to your community or you fit into theirs. Excuse me. Dating. Got to talk about that. I haven't started dating yet because I just didn't want to. I'm not in a rush to date right now. But dating, like one thing that everyone said to me when I was moving here, oh, there's so many gay people in Georgia, you'll never find you a man. So Georgia has a vibrant gay community that is embraced. Okay? I'm sure a lot of people know that. But there's also a lot of straight men and women who are also great, you know? I have some friends here and they date. They're doing a lot of the online dating. I would try that, but I just honestly was in a very long-term relationship and I wasn't ready to date, but I am ready to date. But I just haven't, like, now during COVID it's kind of hard, but maybe I'll try the online thing, who knows. But New York is very hard to find someone because, even though I was with somebody, but it's really hard because in New York, everybody's in a hurry. Everybody is rushing to go somewhere, rushing to go to their second job, third job, whatever. So it's hard to meet somebody because even if you meet somebody, their schedule versus your schedule, nobody really drives, so it's not like you can pick them up. It's like scheduling and trying to make time. So dating in New York to me was a little bit tough, but I'm not sure how the dating is here yet because I haven't attempted to date. Not yet. Okay, so New York has a vibe. Well, New York had a vibe, a great vibe. It was getting watered down because of gentrification in New York. And according to my sister, who's a very social person here in Georgia, she said the vibe is here. And when I first used to come here, I never ever caught a vibe here. It was just not the vibe I was looking for. But since I've been here, I've been to quite a few places. Not a lot, but some decent places. And I actually really can see there is a vibe here. You know, there's definitely a vibe being created within the music, the arts. Yeah, the colleges are here. Not all of them, but a lot of the colleges, Spelman, Clark, Morehouse, those universities are here. So we have a lot of college students coming here and going to these black colleges. And so, and they stay in Georgia, some of them, and they do the work. Overall, so I wanted to rate what I thought about. As far as transportation, I give New York a 10. I give Georgia a 5. Transportation, public transportation. And I give it because they're not as frequent and they don't run all night. That's why I'm giving a 5 to Georgia. It is cleaner. The trains are cleaner in Georgia than they are in New York. The train stations are cleaner. But I still give it a 5 for the weirdos. The job situation here, I'm going to give that a 5. I'm sorry, I'm going to give that a 5, and New York I'm going to give a 9. Because I feel like you can find a job in New York. Anything. If you've got a field, you can find it in your field. If you don't have a field or a trade, you can find something. And here I think it's a lot harder to do that. The weather. I give New York a 2. Okay, I give New York a 3. And I give Georgia an 8. Georgia's weather is not perfect because of the rain, but it's not bad either. Hospitality. I give Georgia an 8. Yeah, I give Georgia an 8 on hospitality. And I'll give New York an 8 too. Yeah. Dating, I can't rate because I haven't dated in Georgia, so I can't really say how the dating situation is. Crime, I give Georgia a 2. No, I give Georgia, for crime, I give Georgia a 5, being the worst. Lower numbers being the worst. And I give New York a 8 when it comes to crime. Yeah. Cost of living, I give Georgia a 9 and I give New York a 3 because the cost of living here is way better than Georgia, but the job situation is not. Once you get a job, the quality of life is good. Diversity, I give New York a 10 and I give Georgia a 7. Yeah. So I don't think I missed anything. Yeah. I don't think I missed anything else that I wanted to say about New York. But like I said, so New York has a great vibe. When I moved to New York when I was 21. I moved there to work in fashion. I was a designer at a major design company for at least 8 years in that position. New York was very good to me. Like out of all the places I have lived, I consider myself a New Yorker. I enjoyed it during the time that I was there, but I knew that I would not live in New York forever based on the quality of life in New York. If the quality of life was better and the weather was bad, I may have tried to stick it out. But the quality of life, along with the weather, I had to go. It was bittersweet, but when I left, I was not sad at all. I was ready for my next chapter in my life. And like I said, I still have a business in New York, so I do live between New York and Georgia, where eventually I will be full-time in Georgia. But as of now, I am living between the two states, and it's kind of great. Like New York is a fun place to go to, so I can go there and have fun while I'm working, and then I can come back to Georgia and relax a little and enjoy a better quality of life. All after COVID is done. So I do consider myself a New Yorker. Because that's the place that I have lived out of any of the places I have lived the most. So it's like I said, New York was a great vibe. I met amazing people. I have worked for some amazing people. I have learned so much, and I have traveled so many places. And I have visited a lot of cities, so I'm very familiar or aware of what people like within a state or a city or a place. Anyway, I'm just rambling right now. So I'm going to please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for all my notifications. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that I didn't ramble on too much. And I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions about New York or Georgia that I can help you with, please put a comment in the box and I will try to answer your question the best way I know how. So guys, we have come to the end of this video. See you on the next video, and thank you so much for listening to me ramble today. Peace.